Hello everyone, welcome back. So in previous lecture, we just created user registration form, right? So we have created user registration form, and now in this lecture, we are going to insert the data in MySQL database. So the moment user registered with username and password, so we have to log in with that credentials. Okay, so this is what the requirement. Now let me show you what are all the classes, what are all the repositories we are going to create. So let me show you. So to register user form, so to create user form, and you want to insert the data, so we used to create classes, right? So let me show you what are the classes we are going to create. So first, user controller, I think we already created, right? And user controller dot java, and after that, so business logic. So to persist the data in database, we have to write the business logic, right? So that business logic will be, we should write in service layer. So let me create a service, user service dot java. This should be interface, and user service impl dot java, and next, we have to create, so we are going to connect with MySQL database, right? So we are going to use JPA to persist the data. So to connect with MySQL database, and we have to perform code operations, right? If you want to register the user, so we need a JPA repository. So then we need a user JPA repository dot java. So after that, so we need a so before that, before creating user repository, we must create the entity, right? So to insert the data, we need a entity in JPA, right? So let me create user entity as well, user entity dot java. So now we need to create, these are all classes. Now, so before creating these classes, first we have to establish the connection with the database, right? So to connect with my SQL database, so we need a dependencies. So MySQL connector dependency, and to use JPA, we have to add Spring Data JPA dependency. So two dependencies we need to add to connect with MySQL database, and to use JPA. What are all those dependencies? Dependencies are, one is MySQL connector, and another one is, so we'll just make use difference here. So you can see here, so MySQL connector and data Spring Data JPA. So these dependencies we need to connect with MySQL server and to use JPA. So after that, so we have to provide username and password and database URL, right? So once we add these dependencies in pom.xml, so after that, we should authenticate with the MySQL database. To authenticate with MySQL database, we need a properties, right? Data source properties, data source properties. So these properties will be added into application.properties file. That's it. So once we add these dependencies and properties, then we will create these clauses. After that, we will register the user. So let me add the dependencies. So to add the dependencies, you no need to remember all the syntax. So MySQL connector and MySQL Spring Data JPA. So what you can do, you should understand the concept. So to connect with MySQL database, we need MySQL connector dependency. So just go to Google and type MySQL connector Maven dependency. That's it. So after that, you can go to Maven repository and you can see. So earlier we used to add MySQL driver. So later, once Spring Boot came into picture, they are moved to MySQL connector J. So the artifact was moved to MySQL connector J. Just click on that and take latest version of MySQL connector. So I am choosing the latest version of MySQL connector. Copy the dependency and where we need to add. So we have to add it into pom.xml. So let me open the pom.xml and here you can use you can add this dependency. Organize the code, control shift F. So version we no need to add. So MySQL connector version no need to add actually. So Spring Boot automatically pick that specific version, latest version. So now let me save, let me stop the server, otherwise it will keep disturb us. So now what is other dependency? So MySQL connector dependency we have added successfully. Next, Spring Data GPA. So Spring Data GPA, it's a starter dependency, right? So there is a web module dependency already present. Just copy paste and add instead of web and then data, type data. So you can see suggestion Spring Boot starter data JPA. That's it. So we have added data JPA to connect with JPA and we have added MySQL connector to connect with MySQL database. So whenever we add dependencies in pom.xml, you must update the project. Okay, right click on the project and Maven and update project. Otherwise your dependencies will not resolve and your application will behave improperly. So most of the people, sir, I have added pom.xml dependencies and then still my application is not working. So make sure whenever any modifications are done in pom.xml, you must update the project. It is mandatory. Otherwise, your project dependencies or will not add into your project properly. Okay, update the project. Okay, so that's it. So now next, what is the next step? Let's open the notepad plus plus. So here next we need to add data source properties. So this data source properties to connect with MySQL database or any database, so we need to add data source properties. So if you don't remember those properties, so what we can do, so let's again go to the Google and close this now, not needed, and then type Spring Boot MySQL property application properties. That's it. So you can see very first link spring.io. There is a guide spring.io web link will be available. So just click on that web link and you can see all the MySQL properties. So come down, see, or you can able to see, right? See database URL and username and password. Just copy. So this is for to generate the to generate tables dynamically. Then we need to add this property ddl-auto, and this is the database URL to provide that property, and this is a database property to provide username and database property to provide password. So I am copying all these four, and you no need to declare the driver. Okay, in Spring Boot application we no need to add this driver. Spring will detect automatically, Spring Boot will detect it. Okay, so just copy these four properties. So this is optional, guys. So this is optional only. You need to add this property for ddl hyphen auto property if you want to create tables dynamically. So you don't want to create the tables in database, so you can add this property. The moment you add this property, so once you create the entity with @entity annotation, so Hibernate or JPA will create the table in database. Okay, so that's the reason. If you require, you just add it. Otherwise, you can create table manually, or if you want to create table dynamically, add this property in your properties application dot properties. Copy these four properties, and where we need to place this application dot properties, that will be inside the resources application dot properties. That's it. So here logging level. So as of now, I don't want to debug the Spring framework, so I'm just commenting it out. Anywhere you can add this property, so just add this property, and then we have to give database URL host name and database name. So since it is a local machine, so I will give local host colon. So our database is available in my current my machine, right, laptop machine. So here you have to give local host. If it is your database is available in remote machine, then you have to give your database IP address. Okay, local host, okay, that's it. Localhost colon 3306, and this is here we have to give database table name. What is our database? Sorry, database name application underscore db. So let me copy this database name and replace with db underscore example. That's it. Our database URL is ready now. So after that we have to provide username. So whenever you are installing your MySQL database, that time whatever username you specify, or the default username will be root. If you create any user, then that username you have to give to connect with MySQL, to log in with your MySQL database. So here root root is my database username, and I have given password as admin during the installation, MySQL installation. So don't think like you have to give root and admin only. No. So whatever username and password which you have given during MySQL installation, those username and password you have to specify here. That's it. So database properties are added successfully. So next, let's create a user controller, right? So I think we have in previous lecture we already created user controller, right? You have created user controller to display user registration form. So now then next, let's create better create entity first, or user service dot java also can create. Okay, let me create a user service dot java interface. For that, let me create a separate package for it. Right click on your root package of your application, and select package, giving package name as service, and right click on that service package and create class called user, sorry, not class, we should create interface, right? Right click on new and select, we have to create interface, not class. Make sure, guys, so whenever if you directly you can create a service IMPL class as well, but if you create interface, if any new feature if you want to add in your application, you just need to add abstract method in interface, and that interface method can be overridden in your implementation class, right? So let's create interface. Right click on your service package and new interface, user service. Yeah, interface is ready now. We should have interface implementation, right? So let me create user service impl.java. User service impl. Right click on that service package and new and class. Your business logic will be inside the user service impl. And this should extend interface, right? It should implement interface user service and click on select that and click on OK button. That's it. So who is going to create an object of implementation class? Spring Boot. How Spring Boot will create? So we have to declare at the rate service annotation. Since it is a business logic, so then we are going to declare this class as a service layer. So all the business logic should be inside the service layer. So that is the reason I am using at the rate service annotation. That's it. So now service definition and service implementation both are ready. Now let's create entity, user entity. So let me create a package called entity. Right click on that package and create class. Since we are creating user registration form, so I am creating entity name as user entity. Finish. So we have to declare at the rate entity annotation. Check out the annotation. So now after that, let's create a primary key, private long user ID and private string first name and private string last name, private string email, private string password. So we have total 5 properties, right? So user ID will be created by JPA. So primary key will create by JPA. So that's the reason we no need a field here. So first name, last name, email and password. So all the properties are created. So let's create a setters and getters method. So if you are using a Lombok framework, so you no need to create setters and getters. You just need to declare annotations, right? So that way I will explain you later. So let's for the time being, let's create setters and getters methods manually. So now select all and click on generate button. So setters and getters are ready and override toString method. Click on generate button. Our entity is ready now. So our entity is ready. Next, so before that, so we have to declare, actually entity is created and declared at the rate entity annotation, but we have to declare primary key also, right? How we can define our primary key in JPA or Hibernate? At the rate ID annotation. Jakarta dot persistence ID, and then who will create this primary key? JPA will create primary key. So generated value, and I will give identity algorithm. strategy I will give identity to create primary key. If you don't define this, what will happen? You must pass primary key from your web page. So generally we will not send primary keys from web page, right? So let's Hibernate create the primary key for us. So that's the reason we have to give at generated value. And next, let me give first name, last name. While registering the user, first name, last name, email and password all are mandatory, right? So let's me declare it as a mandatory. How we can declare? With the help of at the rate column, and this will have name, column name I don't want to give. Let's create first underscore name. So I will give nullable false. So the moment you declare nullable false, so JPA will not allow you to insert null values in database. So similarly, let me give other columns also. Last name and email and password all are mandatory. If you declare nullable true, so database will allow null values. If you declare nullable false, database will not allow null values. And so email, so whenever you are registering with email address, so that email should be unique, right? So user may register multiple times. So we should not allow to same user to register multiple time. So what we have to do, we have to restrict that. So any user, he can register only one time, one mail id, one unique email id. So with that, the moment user is registered, so we should not allow him to register again. So for that purpose, what we have to do, we have to make email, since email is unique, so there is a property called unique. So just define it as true. Unique is equal true, nothing but. So duplicate email ids will not allow to insert in database. So JPA will not allow duplicate values to insert database. So unique is equal true. So that's it. So now our entity is ready. So now next, what we need to create? Last one, JPA repository, user JPA repository to perform database operations like insert, update, delete operations. So we need a JPA repository. So let me create package called JPA repository. Right click on root package of your project and select package dot repository. So right click on that package and create interface user JPA repository, and this should extends JPA repository. JPA, type JPA repository. That's it. Click on OK and click on finish button. And JPA repository is a generic interface, right? So now we have to define our entity, user entity. And what is the primary key of data type? Long, which we have declared in our entity. And let me declare our repository with at the rate repository annotation. That's it. Repository also ready now. So now we can perform database insert operation, and we can create a method in controller to perform user registration. So in this next lecture, we will insert the data or we will register the user. Okay. So make sure you guys are practicing every day, guys. Okay, I will catch you in next lecture. So who are all watching newly, you can register, I can access YouTube channel, and you can subscribe my channel, and you can watch all the Spring Boot related videos on Angular microservices and unit test cases and Spring Security, JWT and OAuth 2, and also lot of futures. I am going to upload all the videos in this channel, so you can subscribe and watch, and you can learn development skills and you can succeed in our lives. Okay, I hope you guys can learn very easily. Okay, so what is the YouTube channel? So let me type. My YouTube channel will be uh, I have two YouTube channels actually. So let me, one of the channel will be youtube.com/@ Rasul hyphen Sheikh slash playlists, or you can directly open Java Cafeteria in your YouTube. You can search with the name called Java Cafeteria. So you can open the channel and you can subscribe and watch all the videos. Okay, thank you guys.